This is our weekly Center for Healthcare Policy and Research seminar series, and we have a great group today, a pretty big group, a little bit bigger than we normally have. So they must be very excited to hear you speak, Dr. Brown. Um, we rotate on topics on policy and on community engagement and clinical engagement and methods. And so we're really excited because I think you're going to help us actually level up on some methods today. So I'm really excited to hear your talk. Today, everyone, we are really fortunate to have Dr. William Brown from UCSF join us. He is a associate professor in the Center for AIDS Prevention Study or Division of AIDS Prevention Studies within the Department of Medicine, and he's also part of the informatics and works with some of the epibiostats departments at UCSF. So I've known him from my previous career there, but he is a really unique and amazing speaker. He has both a doctor of public health from Berkeley and also a PhD in informatics from Columbia. So he is like I call him a double PhD expert. Um, and he's here today to talk specifically about AI and some of the new methods he's been using with AI. So we're so fortunate to have you with us today, and we'll let you take it away. Um, you have slides? You're all set? Okay, take it
I have
away.
slides. I'm all set.
Great. Go for it. And then people usually write in the chat, Will, or they all, and then I
I
figured you
love
have,
that.
okay, great. So you can chat in questions, and then I'm sure you'll have a little bit of end. People can also raise their hand at the end.
Yeah.
But
If
so,
somebody could watch the chat for me,
yep,
that would be
I'd be happy.
great. And then bring up any chat questions. But I love a lot of interaction in the chat. We all
Awesome.
communicate differently.
Great. Perfect. So yeah, take it away.
All right. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is William Brown. I am an associate professor at the University of California, San Francisco in the departments of medicine and jointly appointed in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics. I have my own lab, the Clinical and Observational Data Excellence Lab, and also some directorships of various different data-oriented organizations and fellowships. Um, and today I'm really, really excited to talk about the using artificial intelligence for scientific writing while maintaining ethical and professional standards. So, so important. I think we all have gotten um, a little taste of artificial intelligence in our lives. And if you don't think that you have, surprise, you have. It's everywhere now. It's integrated into everything. And even when we feel like we're not using it, we are using it. So we have to make sure that we remain transparent and ethical and follow any guidelines that there are while also optimizing it for the task at hand, which for us, and in this moment, is scientific writing. So AI in academia. What do I use AI in academia for? What do I suggest others focus AI in academia to be used for? Drafting and brainstorming, ideation, thinking around, organizing different things, enhancing the clarity of things, helping you more expeditiously uh, draft something that supports your research and writing process. One of the things that I absolutely say do not do is use it as a factual database or primary author. Those are two of the things that we're going to talk about today. There's another lecture that I give, artificial intelligence for research and data analysis. Maybe I'll come back at a later date and talk about that one. But we'll be focused on the authorship area of using artificial intelligence. And then the reason why that's important, both of those things are important, is because we want to make sure at all times we're maintaining accountability and integrity because the AI itself can't be accountable for anything and it doesn't have programmed in integrity as well. One thing you'll hear me say time and time again is we are still responsible for whatever it is we put out, even if AI told us to do it. So let's talk about ethics around grantsmanship first. This is a recently kind of like hot topic because particularly the NIH came out with new guidelines this past September, or at least that enacted after September 25th, 2025, about how it was going to operate in terms of AI. So there's the link to that. You can easily search that in a Google search. But the two things that came out were the that applications that are either substantially developed by AI or containing sections substantially developed by AI are not considered and are not considered the original ideas of the applicant will not be considered by NIH. Now, what does that mean? That actually is not super helpful because it says substantially. We don't really know what substantially means. And so that kind of makes it scary to use AI. But if you dig deeper into that literature and the literature of the journals and their policies on AI, it's actually encouraging the use of AI. So substantial, we'll talk a little bit more about what that may mean, but really it's going to be about transparency. The other thing that it stated is that NIH will also only accept up to 6 new renewal, resubmissions, or revision applications from any individual principal investigator or multiple PI or anything like that. It says for more details. So this is within this document. And that was kind of like a big news thing because it's not so much that people are submitting more than 6 a year. Submitting 6 a year is actually a huge challenge and exhausting. However, there being a restriction on the number is kind of a new revelation to people, and then also thinking around the time frame of that. And so, in many cases, you may not be submitting a grant on your own from scratch, where you're writing the entire thing, or you're the contact MPI or the principal investigator, but you may be collaborating as an MPI. So note that it says multiple principal investigator as well. So that's something to think about because there may be, you may submit 3 grants of your own, but then there may be some other grants that you're collaborating on with other people where you're also listed as an MPI, and those count against you as well. And a lot of this is all under the idea that there is a subsample um, of researchers that have increased their output. And the theory behind that is all the wording in the document. The theory behind that is that this must be because of AI, because of the timeline of when the increase happened. And the increase is only in less than 2% of all applicants. Most people are not even doing this, and they don't expect for this guideline to impact very many people, but they're putting it in there preemptively. There may be some other reasons as to why they're doing these different restrictions for the number of grants, but right now the premise is artificial intelligence. So AI ethics and journal publication. So one of the organizations, the Committee on Publication Ethics, tries to work with a lot of large and small publication organizations in order to come up with the ethical guidelines for which we will publish. What do we give credit to? What actions? And so we know that there's a list of people who either did the research, who are responsible for drafting, who are the primary author, who are co-author, all these different things that have already been stated. And now with AI being there, I think one of the workarounds that people have said to say, hey, AI helped me with this, is that AI is also a co-author. And the consensus across the board for all journals is that AI is not an author. You can't list it as an author. And some of the journals are actually doing a top level scan of documents where it seems like AI may have been listed as an author for any kind of like ethical workarounds. So, what are the things that we learn from the organization and that are also found in journals like Science and the Journal of the American Medical Informatics Association and JAMA and everything like that, is that AI is not an author. And that disclosure that most journals now require an AI declaration. So there's several ways that they want you to declare or inform the reader and or the reviewers that AI has been used. One is in a declaration that is to be put in both the initial opening letter to the editor that before they start reviewing your journal article or your written manuscript, and putting that in the letter to the editor, and or adding that to the acknowledgments session, any kind of like other additional information that needs to be known. They'll also specify if it should go somewhere else. So, for instance, a very common practice is to also clarify in the method section which methods you use that employed AI in the analysis of data and in the drafting of the work itself. One of the areas where there seems to be some leniency on that is when you're using AI as a copy editor, when you're just saying, hey, find any of my typos, my mistakes, my, duplicates or anything that where I just made a very human error and it has nothing to do with the thought process um, behind creating the document itself. And then finally, a statement about accountability that we, as the author and all authors listed on any of the works that we do, are legally and ethically responsible for every word, even if AI suggested it. So keep that in mind. Um, but again, I'll harken back to both uh, the organization and other journals are not ever saying do not use AI. Actually, in many of the documents, they all are saying to use AI, but in very specific ways to help with organization, to help with a lot of the tedium that comes with academic writing. And so some of the other things that are really helpful when you're going to be reporting that and putting in the methods section and disclosing the use of AI in your scientific writing is keeping a prompt log. This is something that I do in my courses. So right now I teach an informatics tools and health disparities research course, and using AI for both data analysis and for writing is mandatory. In almost all the other classes, it's restricted, or there are wide constraints for its use and big concerns and a lot of like, kind of warning language around plagiarism and overuse of AI. For me, I tend to lean into this is a tool that is future forward. It's integrated into everything. It's integrated into Google Docs. It's integrated into Word. It's integrated into Excel. There's always a little sparkly twinkle AI button to either answer a question, have it look at whatever you're looking at, and then to produce some kind of generated text or analysis or helpful bit of information. So make sure that when you're doing that, when you're using these tools, that you document how you're using it and what prompts you're using it, what GPTs you're using, etc. And then fact check everything. One of the tedious tasks that I like to use AI for is helping me structure my references. And so it can be really good at helping organize and relabel and restructure and renumber different references in the reference section and in the body of the text as well. But it will absolutely hallucinate in many cases. Not all cases, and the majority of the time it doesn't. But when you're doing references, that is where your ethics come in. That's where you're saying, I got this idea or this piece of text specifically from this source. And if in the reorganization process or in the updating process or the refinement process, the AI is adding in any additional information that is invalid, you don't want that to get into your final document because you'll be responsible for that invalidity. This is both with grantsmanship and with journal publishing. So make sure that after it does all the formatting, that you just recheck that some of the PMCIDs and the DOIs and a lot of the reference codes and even some of the phraseology in the titles themselves is all still very, very accurate. It can feel tedious, but ultimately it does save a lot of time, even though you have to go through and recheck them. It's a little bit quicker to copy, paste, recheck, and make sure that everything and just review over.
I had a
Uh,
question in the chat actually about that topic. Dr. Henry was wondering, are you using it to suggest references for your paper, or are you meaning something else, like just numbering them and ordering the references in a paper?
So, in the context of NIH's guidelines and in the context of the guidelines for the different journals, the suggested use case is for organizing the references and helping you through the process. Now, absolutely, you can use the AI to help you find resources for specific topic areas when you're thinking about and ideating through a topic. That is a really valuable time-saving resource to use. But again, make sure that you double check. In theory, if you're using it to ideate, you're going to be checking that reference anyway. And then a common practice that I'll get into in a bit is to ask it to provide some level of verification. AI can check itself as well. It can tell you sometimes it tells you when it's lying. It really, really does. But it's not going to volunteer that information. So you can say, give me a direct web address link to where you got this reference from. Sometimes it'll provide those links for you so you can just click on it and you can see that it comes from a reputable source where it's pulling that from. That's particularly true with Gemini, and you have to specifically request it with ChatGPT. Okay, so what I was also saying is focus on logic. So use AI for some different expressions of thoughts and ideas when you're ideating and organizational tasks, but not as any kind of like actual, factual evidence. And don't take it always for face value. It's going to give you a lot of good stuff, but you have to be ready and expect that there potentially could be some inaccurate stuff there as well. Okay, writing workflow. So now let's get to the writing of it all. Brainstorming, using AI to help ideate and refine research questions and identify gaps in the literature. This is kind of harkening back to what we were just talking about, which was finding references, having the AI pull up analyses and stuff like that. Now, in this case, what you would want to do when you are finding gaps in literature is being very specific. The more information and more information you give and the more specificity you give, the better the output's going to be. We're going to get into that when we go over some prompt engineering techniques, and hopefully by the end of this session, we'll be able to actually like do a little hands-on demonstration of some of these things as well. But for the ideation phase, this is the fun part, right? This is where you can bounce ideas for a project or for something that you're writing off of AI. And where we can get into the safe zone is remembering that we already have written and thought about a lot of what we want to work on. So the danger zone is providing no new information or only allowing AI to reference the web. So the example that I would give or that I'll give later is providing links to your bio that may be available or uploading a copy of your bio. Now, mind you, you may have some information that you don't want to share in there. So different types of AI provide different levels of protection. So you can see down at the bottom in red when I'm having this conversation with people who either are working with UCSF or at UCSF, we have a AI system called Versa, and that's a sandbox environment where we can use P3 and P4 and any kind of sensitive data because it's not linked to the outside. It's just updated on a regular basis with different GPTs and LLMs. I think there's some more comments in the chat.
We can save
Um,
them, I think,
okay.
because it maybe or maybe the first one you can answer. I think that's second to our comments, which is these are all paid versions that you use in your research. So you have Versa, which we don't have available to us, unfortunately, at Davis, but we do have some tools available to us in our environment. And are you thinking about paying for your own for your research, Will, or are you only using the ones available to you in your professional job?
Well, the fortunate thing is that if you do have a research project or you do have a kitty of funds for research, software for data analysis and to help speed up the process of work is fundable by those resources. And ChatGPT and other kinds of AI forms, you can pay for those things. Now, the benefit of ChatGPT is that in its personal non-paid form, can't use it. Don't use it for anything that may contain sensitive data because it's absolutely taking everything that you're using that you put into it and it's putting it back into the system. But for ChatGPT Enterprise or any or the upper tier professional ChatGPTs, those are sandboxed off. They report that they do not use any of the inputs that you put into ChatGPT at that level, at that paid enterprise level, for any of their LLMs, any of their systems, and so that anything that you put into it is protected and contained and not shared. So when I am ideating or using it for to help me with drafting and outlining, I definitely use the enterprise version. UCSF is on top of that. So actually, interestingly enough, today UCSF announced well, a few weeks ago, UCF announced that today it will be buying ChatGPT Enterprise for all UCSF. Now, it's going to start off with the early adopters. These are people who are already signed up and have access to UCSF Versa. That's about 9,000 users. And then in about a week to 2 weeks' time, they're going to release it and make it available for requested access to the rest of the scientific and administrative and educational community at UC Davis. So that's huge. And they're going to maintain Versa at the same time. But I think the idea behind that is actually phasing out Versa and using ChatGPT, which absolutely is more powerful, as the primary enterprise resource for artificial intelligence and large language model tasks.
Yep. And so that's at UCSF. Here at Davis, I see in the chat, and I just wanted to say it out loud. Yes, we have Enterprise Microsoft Copilot integrated into our teams, which is essentially it's not perfect. So you definitely need to check, as this person's chat mentioned, for the types of data you're putting in there. But that's what we have available for us. We do not have a Versa, and we do not have a license for ChatGPT for everyone here. But this is great. So trying to think through an enterprise version and trying to think through what is most relevant for your analysis. This is great.
And and the other thing that I'll tell you with ChatGPT is really look into the different tiers and the different pay models. So they have like a annual pay model if you want the tool for a year, but then you can also pay for that thing for monthly, and you can also pay for ChatGPT team level models where you get several different user slots for, say, your lab. So you and your different research assistants and or trainees can all be under your same one. So you as the investigator can pay for a lab subscription to an enterprise version and then allocate out and then uh, restrict back the access to those different slots. The other thing that is really great about ChatGPT is that it also has this new kind of share feature, which you should be careful if you're using with people who do not have the enterprise version. But you can now not only just share a chat that you've worked on, but you can work within a chat simultaneously and continuously as a team, very similar to working together in a Google Doc, working together on an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so going on for writing workflow, outlining, super great for outlining, putting in your different notes, some findings in a protected way. I do this in Versa, asking for and bullets, asking for standard introductions, methods, outlines of results, outlines of discussion structure, and all this kind of stuff. Because the truth of the matter is, the main thing that even NIH was saying, and that the journals also say, is that they want to maintain creativity of thought, originality of thought. But the thing that these institutions and organizations are always giving us and forcing us to do is put into structured, rule-based formats that require a lot of repetition. Introduction, methods, result section, discussion, hit these different points, abstract, this. We have to take our new nuanced idea and put it into a standardized format. And AI is great at creating or paying attention to or duplicating standardized formats. Okay, so drafting introduction, providing a few background details and providing a goal and tone you want for the reader. Method section and putting your protocol notes. So thinking back to that protocol that you already wrote, many of you guys already have these ideas generated and using prompts that will help the AI to convert them into a cohesive, like narrative structure that follows the structure of what has been set forth by either the granting institution and or the journal, and then a discussion section providing AI or using Versa specifically with your results and asking it to suggest potential implications or comparisons with existing literature. And then going back. So this is again in the ideation phase of saying, this is what I have. Help me look through this in a machine readable and fast way, and then let's bounce some ideas off of each other, and then you choose the direction of that paper and or of that grant. So be careful of, and these are real, genuine worries, are hallucination. AI frequently invents fake citations. It really, really does, more so than anything else that it hallucinates with. And then never use a reference generated by AI without verifying it in PubMed or Google Scholar. Really, PubMed is our academic resource for that, but make sure that you re-verify that it is legit and um, that the PMCID and other similar codes are valid, because sometimes the paper is valid and the code is generated. It's wild. Confidentiality, do not upload unpublished sensitive data or proprietary methods to a public AI. So this might be the difference between a personal ChatGPT and an enterprise ChatGPT, or using Versa or something that's insular into your university. And then bias. We know that it has bias. We play around. I used to play around with asking it to tell me a story about um, a nurse and a doctor who develop a relationship in a hospital system, and it was always a certain ethnicity, and it was always certain genders who had certain positions and certain sexual orientations and all that kind of stuff. And that's because the bias is baked into the data. AI algorithm is just a is it can be boiled down to, if we think about it, a statistical model of what is most likely. And if the data that it is pulling from says that the person is most likely a physician that's white and male, then that's what it's going to generate unless prompted to do otherwise. The other thing, and so the same thing with different biases in its analysis of data. If it's expecting a certain outcome, even if it's reading your data, it may be thinking holistically about the other data around it, the other data that it's pulling from. So one of the things that I teach my students is about, in your prompt, add in constraints. You can tell it to only look at the data that you provide, only look at the resource that you provide, and ignore all other data and outside sources. So it can use those data and outside sources for its idea and generation process, but it's only going to analyze the data that you specify. We'll talk about comma delimited text and or delimited text and things like that. And then AI fingerprints. Over reliance leads to repetitive phrasing. In conclusion, it is important to note, et cetera, et cetera. You will notice the more that you use artificial intelligence to help you through this process, that it has certain things that it does very often, particularly when you first use it. So ensure you are going through rewriting the final version in your own voice for any of the different aspects that it helped you ideate through or text through. And sometimes this kind of gets filtered out in the collaborative process that is often inherent in academic research because everybody has corrections and ideas and want to change different things. And we like to put in our own narrative tone. So, prompt engineering as a concept, I'm sure many of you guys already know kind of like what it is, the process of crafting prompts to guide AI models to produce desired outputs. This is so, so important because based on how you talk to AI, that will directly relate to the kind of product that you get back. So how does it work? By providing context, instructions, examples. You help the AI understand your intent and respond in a meaningful way. That's so important. Why it's important to ensure that AI models produce accurate and relevant outputs, and it and helps to improve human AI communication. So you're helping that communication by improving your communication with it. It's going to learn a lot from you in that communication. Actually, today, what what I'm finding, what a lot of people who use artificial intelligence on a regular basis are finding, is that it starts to learn how you speak. You almost starts to pick up your accent, your vernacular, your idiomatic expressions. So pay attention to that when you're using it as well. And then the application can be used to improve the safety of other LLMs, build new capabilities, and develop and test security mechanisms and skills required. Creativity, so important. Be creative. Think outside the box. It is not doing the thinking for you. You are telling it what to think, how to think, and what to do. Trial and error. Get your hands messy, and and an understanding of the capabilities and limitations of LLMs, a lot of which we've already covered. So, prompt engineering fundamentals. These are some of the basics. I'm going to go over four of the basics and then a couple of the intermediary methods. So, prompt engineering fundamental. Give AI a clear role. Act as a senior editor at a journal with expertise in X field. Tell them something about yourself. I am this. You are that. Give them context. And sometimes easy way to give context is to refer it to an existing data source of context that you've already worked on, that already contains your writing and your voice. If it's pulling from you to generate something for you, then essentially you've already validated and it's in your voice. Now you definitely should check it and make sure you don't submit anything that you haven't looked over and verified yourself. But one of the things that I do pretty frequently is that I'll say, hey, my name's William Brown. I'm a researcher, da 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 da. Here is a link to my UCSF profiles page where you can find details on the type of researcher that I am, my publications, my different my grants. And in those publications, you can also see the different colleagues that I've worked with. And so it learns a lot about who you are, what your background is, what you're interested in, what your focus is, and it will begin to adjust its analysis and thought process according to that when you begin to ideate. Give an AI a clear goal. So you're not just telling it who it is and who you are. Now you're going to tell it what it needs to do. So provide the specific goal, outline an introduction for a paper from me, draft an email with this specific structure and make sure it's in this tone. So you're telling it a specific task to do. Then use delimited unique text and constraints. We talked about constraints before. Constraints are so fundamental, particularly if you're giving it data to reference and or something to remember. So with ChatGPT in particular, and also with our Versa program, I often will just say, hey, I'm going to give you this document that has a biographical sketch of me, or this document that has the method section from a grant that I've already completed. And I want you to keep this for reference as we work on um, the different components and outlining the next grant. And it'll take it and say, thank you. All right, I'll hold on to that and I'll make reference to that. And so sometimes I can either just tell it what to do and it'll pull from that source as a reference. And then other times I'll say, make sure to go back to that reference. And then sometimes you may think, oh, there's something wrong in that reference. You can actually tell it to update its own memory and change what it knew about that reference to something different. Oh, in that study, there were only 30 patients, but in this subsequent study that we want to think about developing, there's going to be 100 patients. So keep that in mind that we're upping the patients and that we're doing that because we want to account for attrition. This is no longer an exploratory study. This is now a clinical trial. Also, we're going to be responding to this RFA. Here's the link to that RFA. Remember that for reference so that when we're thinking through this process, you can remind me of all the different steps that and all the different topic areas that this RFA wants us to either cover, address, or make sure that we include. So that's part of the delimited text and constraints and providing resources, and then indicate the appropriate tone and style. Sometimes it'll ask you, do you want to be more casual? Do you want to be more formal? It'll try to also think of things in your own tone, or if you tell them that you're an academic, it will lean into that tone. If you tell it you're a comedian, it'll probably lean into that tone as well. So give it a couple of examples. If you're not giving it a bunch of examples from other resources that you have handcrafted yourself, give it a couple of examples of of some of your own writing in the tone and voice that you um, typically write in so that you don't have to go back and do the re-editing of, oh, I like to use indubitably over and over again in my in my in my writing. It'll know that you like to use terms that are uncommon, but that are familiar to you. All right. So, additional prompt engineering skills. So we've gone over the four basic ones. Now we're going to talk about some more, I want to say, mid-level to advanced ones. And so there's this idea of different shots. Zero shot, most people do zero shot because we're so used to just asking Google a question and then getting all these like hits. So that's kind of where a lot of people are coming from. And zero shot is in that kind of vein. So in zero shot prompting, you're asking ChatGPT or whatever GPT or AI for a task without prior examples or details or instructions. In few shot, you're providing various examples for it to follow and additional instruction. And then chain of thought, this is where you really where things can really shine and where you are kind of talking and ideating and working with the AI as if it's another person, as if it's an assistant, as if it's a colleague. So the chain of thought involves guiding the model to reason through problems step by step. And often when we're doing this, we're reasoning through that process along with it. So additional prompt engineering skills, structuring, uh, telling it the structure that you expect to receive back the information in some kind of logical way. So if I give it a unstructured clinical note and I ask it to do a sentiment analysis on that clinical note, well, it will probably or potentially give it back to me in narrative text block formats. Oh, so some of the things that are going on here is that several of the patients are reporting ideas of anxiety, and the physician is saying XYZ. Well, if I'm having it analyze a lot of that, and talking about several of the patients, I may say, provide back that information in a structured, comma delimited format that I can then transfer to Excel or some other kind of database style organizational tool. And in that, provide for me reasoning behind your thought process as to why you made those decisions in that structure as well. So now you'll have and then also provide the excerpt for that you're referencing. So you'll have a quotation of the excerpt, you'll have its analysis on what sentiment it is, and then you'll have its reasoning about why it thought about that process. And then if you're giving it a resource that has additional structure, so say you give it a document that is number lined, you can also ask for a reference to the space in that document so that you can go back to that document and make sure as a final check that that is true to form. Another thing when we're doing things like this, particularly around sentiment analysis and other kinds of analysis of unstructured data, also, just like when we have other raters reading things, other raters thinking around the themes and categorizing things, we do an inter-rater agreement analysis. You should always do and or strongly consider doing agreement with the artificial intelligence as well. Validity checks, so, so important in everything that we do. And then lastly, chunking refers to breaking down a large task or piece of information into smaller, more manageable bites. So, for instance, if I am having it help me ideate through a Ames page or an introduction or a method section or anything like that, I won't just say, help me write an Ames page. I'll say, let's start off with the first opening paragraph of the Ames page and thinking around, like the gap in the literature or the reasoning around why would I would be doing this research. And then the next one, talk about the resources and the strength of the organization and the research group. And now let's ideate through each one of the aims one by one. It will absolutely spit out an Ames page that generally works, but it'll be so nebulous, and you will have to go back and then go through and just read through and check it and make sure that there's all these little details that you want to put it anyway. So it's good to just take it in chunk by chunk and help work through the different thought process of each part of each section as well. Okay, so we have a chain of thought, think step by step. So here's an example of that. So use a prompt like critique this paragraph for clarity and passive voice. Identify any logical leaps in this argument. Summarize the main points of each paragraph to see if the flow is logical. A lot of these things are things that tools that have already existed do for us, particularly around summarization. You can still ask artificial intelligence to do these things, but again, always double check. So this is where I say, let's get interactive. I'm going to pause for a second for questions.
Yeah, there's one in the chat, and then I'll pause to see if anyone else. There's a lot of great comments in the chat too, just about what things they're using and things they like. But the one question I think is unanswered in the chat is about, are you speaking about it actually doing quantitative analysis for you when you speak about this? You already just touched just now on the writing part and sort of the qualitative part of what's happening, but can you speak to using it for both quantitative and qualitative work?
Absolutely. So I am talking about I am referencing the fact that you can use AI for qualitative and quantitative analysis. Now, there are actual tools out there that have artificial intelligence that's specific to running a statistical analysis. There are tools out there that are specific to running a qualitative or sentiment analysis. So, like like I usually say in my introduction to AI, so this is an introduction to AI in writing, but in my introduction to AI, I often have this slide where I show a toolbox with many different tools. AI being a toolbox and having lots of different tools that you can use. And the right tool for the right job is so important, especially when it comes to technology. So don't just rely on one thing if you have a very specific task for it.
Yeah, that's great. Hopefully that answered your question, Stephen. You can come off mute if it didn't. I think Dr. Brown is going to pause here. Is there anybody else who wants to raise their hand or ask any other burning questions? Because I think maybe we can do one more little practice type thing. Will, if you had time. Just looking around, no one's raising their hand. And I would say this is probably new for a lot of us. So I think you're hitting it at the right level, which is that I've used it a little bit. I've like uploaded something I've written before and I've asked it to look at it. And I think you're taking us to one step further, which is using your thought process to reason out how you would normally write. Like on
Yeah.
it, you open a blank document and you're thinking about what are my paragraphs, but you're using it to help you think that through that process and opening up that as a way for you to write. And I think that's actually probably pushing a few people in this room a little further than they've normally done it. And then there's some advanced users in the chat, and I hear you, which is like then it's like getting even more advanced, right? I've used this a lot. I actually want you to break apart even more details in my writing or in my thought process. And so I think I just wanted to say out loud, I want to hear what you think, Will, which is that you can come at it from any of those three levels, but there are different levels. And I think some of us who haven't used it that much, I've used it a little bit, think of it as a one-time thing. But I love the way you're talking about like intro, intermediate, and advanced things that you can do and how to think about it that way. I think is a helpful frame. But you can keep us going. I don't see any other questions for now.
Okay, great. So, what I would like to do now is run through some of the features in ChatGPT specifically. This is a ChatGPT enterprise version, and I'm going to give you some of the nuanced features and some of the deep features that I find helpful at a starting point. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to run through some of the different features and buttons around ChatGPT. I wish I could also show you Versa, but I think you will all have access to ChatGPT since you don't have access to Versa. So down here as a starting place is where I am. That's me, William Brown, right? And that's where you can access your profile and who you are. This is a great place to start because the more your the LLM, the AI, the ChatGPT instance knows about you, the better it is going to be in responding to you and doing the things that you need. So when you click on that, you can go to personalize, right? So you see several different functions here. You like add teammates where you can collaborate and work collaboratively with other people within the same chat instance. Workspace settings where you can have a team project where people can work individually, but you can all see each other's work. And then personalize. So when I go to personalize, this is where it's asking for different kinds of facts about me. So how do I want it to speak to me enthusiastically? Headers, how do I want my response to be? Headers and lists. I like bullets when I things. Do I want to be, what kind of emojis do I want to use? So if you don't want to see all those little pictures and things that it gives you sometimes, you can actually turn that off, mute it, more or less, change those things as well. Um, the thing about you, you can give it a nickname for yourself, your occupation, your occupation, uh, and then your different interests, your values, your preferences, things for it to keep in mind about you that no matter what project you're doing, you want it to know about you. I think this is a great place to always start. And then like a baseline style and tone. So just go through this area, play with it, and personalize it to who you are. That already gets you halfway to that very first step in our beginning prompt engineering task of like give it a roll. So you're telling it a role in addition to in the future giving it a role. Okay. Some of the other useful things about it is being able to search your different chats if you have multiple, a library of different documents that have been developed in the process of ideation and document creation, creating, excuse me, creating a new chat. And this is your tray that'll open up your sidebar and will give you a list of all the different chats that you've done in the past. A thing to keep in mind. Oh, and then over here is where you can kind of like figure out what kind of GPT you want to use, and you'll get certain access to different ones depending on if you're in a free version or if you're on a paid version. But something to keep in mind is that it's learning you. It's understanding who you are, and a part of who you are is all the work that you've done with it as well. So, for instance, if I say I'm thinking around a let's say lesson plan for how to be um, um, to optimize data analysis in clinical research. Well, if I've already ideated and worked through and created different templates and things like that for opioid use disorder or diabetes or anything like that, the examples that it's going to reference and use are going to be in that vein, even if I don't. Say, give me a diabetes example, give me an opioid use disorder example. It's going to want to respond to me in a way that I would be familiar with, that would resonate with me the most. Um, some of the other features are, writing and editing, step-by-step help to walk you through the ideation or use of ChatGPT process, help you, learning something if you want it to help you learn something, or if you want to teach it something, this is also a useful tool. And then creating images. Now, creating images is limited in a personal space. It's unlimited, and the amount you can use ChatGPT is also more unlimited when you have a pay for model. Of course, this is a company, they want to make money. So your ability to use it really becomes constrained by the level of ChatGPT that you have. And then here, if you want to dictate specifically to it, useful feature when you want to give it a lot of instructions. And again, the more detailed you are, the more powerful it is. And then if you want it to read back to you what the output is. And then lastly, this feature here of different files to add, adding photos, adding files. I definitely use this all the time because, again, when it comes to thinking back to the ethical considerations, the issue the issue and the fear that these organizations have is that you're going to take other people's ideas from the internet, other people's thought processes, other people's material from the internet, have ChatGPT reorganize it for you, and then claim it as your own. Now, when you're uploading different files and information that you've generated and telling it to focus on that information as the primary corpus of information, of knowledge, then you are again now referencing your own work. So use those links to you and your colleague who you may be working on a grant with or on a paper to the profile that they worked hard on. Like upload and use um, the bio sketches, which now are even more formatted and structured forever. So why wouldn't I not use, something like ChatGPT or something similar in order to help me reorganize or move around or improve my biographical sketch since it comes in a very specific structure. So let's see, creating an image, web search, deep search, different kinds of additional things. Some of these may not be available to you if you're not paying for it, but just to let you know, it has a lot of different features and you can't break it. Get in there, get your hands dirty, and all that kind of stuff. So, really, really quickly, in the interest of time, I'm going to do a simple task and I'm going to say, uh, I am a researcher. And the following, sorry for my spelling because I'm rushing, is information about me and um, and uh, a paper. Well, say about me, right? We're going to take it stepwise, right? Then I'm going to use um, a colon. So automatically, it assumes anything that comes after a colon is going to be something that it needs to look at and reference. So often you don't need to put things that come after a colon in quotation unless you want to separate different pieces of an entire corpus for different tasks. So, all right. So I'm going to go to my UCSF profiles. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to bring that back to ChatGPT. I'm going to paste, and I'm going to say, keep this info in mind for the future. All right. So now it's going to go there. It's going to reference. It's going to know. And then just to even double check that as it's thinking, let's say, uh, tell me, see, all right. So I was going to say, tell me a little bit about myself. It says, got it. I'll treat your UCSF profile as a canonical source for your professional background, biosketch language, and grant boilerplate going forward. Right? You can do similar stuff for your research team when you're going to be drafting things like your budget justification and your MPI documents and things like that to really speed up those processes. If you think about it, if you go to all the different documents that are required for both journal publications and for grantsmanship, all those are standard things that we have to replicate over and over and over again that require slight tweaks and updates. Any other questions for
Yeah, I
that?
was gonna say, I know we're at time. I don't see any other questions, but I've never thought to tell it, use this about me forward. So I love this. I'm gonna learn something really concrete and simple. I've only ever, like I said, uploaded something and said, look for errors in this or do this for me, my own work. But I love this idea of this is who I am. And now we're going to start from here and go from there. So I think that alone as a concrete tip to take away, I hope everyone learns something. Maybe I'm probably a novice, so many people are way above me, but I've learned a lot today.
I'm going to do one more
We'll do
thing.
one more, and then
I have a little bit of time.
if anyone drops
I
off,
have
that's
time after
fine.
this.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'll say I want to start thinking, thinking around an idea that is re related to some of my research, a previous research that is responsive to this funding announcement. And then do the same thing, provide the link to the funding announcement. So now it's going to go in and read the funding announcement. So now it knows about me. Now it knows about the funding announcement, right? So, so I'm looking into the RFA, likely from NIDA related to drug abuse. This is, I think this one actually is one that is expired. So I'm putting in one that's expired and no longer a valid funding announcement, but this is just for practice. I wonder if it'll even pick up
It
on
did.
that.
It searched a new one. It just said it.
Okay.
It
Okay.
said this one expired, and I found a new one for you. See?
Now, some of the, I mean, it's going. Now it's going. We've given
Yeah.
it two major things, but we've given it so much information in those two major things. It now knows all of the grants that I've done, all of the things that I wrote about myself, all of my education, a lot of my collaborators, all of my publications. It can quantify and understand what I'm typically looking for. And now it also understands what NIH is looking for in a specific thing and can understand when something is like canceled. I was trying to use it as an example because I didn't want it to go into all of this detail, but it's already doing that, and it's helping me generate different ideas of how I might want to approach it. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to is that you have these little gray areas of reference here, right? So it'll tell you where it's pulling sources from and why it's thinking about certain things so that you can get back to those. A lot of these are the same reference that we gave it in the first place, but it will do this a lot as well. And so we have option A, real world data, multi-omics targeting discovery for opioid induced respiratory depression and rescue. And then gives us some points about that core idea. And then a quick little brief aim sketch that we can think around and probably pitch with to our team. And then B, not naloxone gap precision targets for fentanyl era overdose reversal and field deployed rescue. And then C, gut brain exists. So these are all different types of areas. And then let's just do one last ask.
Love
Um,
it.
who are some colleagues because collaboration is also super challenging. And one of the great sources that as a UC system that we have to reference and draw from is that we have profiles that already has in it an ontology that connects everybody together based on certain topical areas. But we don't just want to work with anybody. We want to work with people that we've already worked with before that we're familiar with. So I'm going to ask it, who are some of the colleagues that I have previously, I could say work with, but I'm going to go ahead and say published with so it knows exactly where to look. Published with that I could work uh, on this type of study with. So again, we're still in the ideation phase. We're still in the development phase. We're still in the thinking around. We're still in kind of like what could this project potentially look like? And it's just helping us do this process a little bit faster. So it's going back to some of um, my Columbia colleagues, Rebecca Schnall, Sue Bakken, Sarah Reberon, Dean Schillinger, because we've done natural language process. Courtney knows we both worked with Dean, uh, uh, Scott,
Yeah.
Renu, Irma Mala. I'm waiting for to see Courtney in here,
Oh, it
and the
was up
fact
there.
that
It
it
was
has
up there. It was up there.
okay, all right,
Right before Dean. Yeah,
okay,
no, this see. I love this well. I know we're at time, and so I want to make sure people don't feel bad leaving. But this is like, I love that you took the concepts and then you showed it as an example. I know you're available. I know people can find you in case they had a very specific thing that they wanted to follow up with you about. But to me, I really think this again, across the levels, from us novice to people who are more advanced, I think this gave us a lot to think about, and to just feel freedom about not being so scared to try it out, not to use it for your own words, but to try it out and to think about how we can use it better. So I just really appreciate it. You take a lot of time. I know you're very busy, and hopefully maybe we'll even have you back in the future.
yeah. I would love to come back, speak to you more.
Awesome.
There's a lot of different skills we weren't able to go over and a lot of different processes. And I hope this was helpful to everyone.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of thank yous in the chat, so we really appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks all.